Have you ever trained a cat? Didn't work very well, did it? Well, you actually can teach cats to do things for you, but you need to impress them for them if they perform for their person. And actually, you can derail nefarious intentions by giving a cat opportunities to earn an honest living. In case we haven't met, I'm veterinarian Dr. Jeff Nickel. Along with our family cat Tony, we have one other guy. He's going to make an appearance in a minute or two. I'm residency trained in veterinary behavior medicine with long experience in general practice. So any questions come up, whether it's behavior of cats or dogs or internal medicine or fractures or cancer, you can ask. I can help. So I hope this is valuable to you. If you hear information from me on teaching cats how to work for you instead of engaging in bad behavior, then and this is valuable, please hit the heart button so that I know that we're doing something useful for you. And if you can hear me loud and clear, hit the wow button. And if you have friends whose cats could benefit from this kind of information, you're very welcome to tag them. And I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. So tell me you're here in the comment line and tell me where you're from. These cats are interesting creatures, aren't they? Sometimes they want to be petted, and sometimes they don't. And we just sort of have to do things on their terms to some extent. You notice I'm wearing a treat bag right here, and it has cat treats in it. And I've also got a clicker, and I'm going to show you. My goodness, Tony says, I think I know where those treats are. Yes, you get to earn some in just a few minutes. I have a story I want to tell you about Tony. Tony, he's about 14 now. And Tony, Teat, my goodness gracious, now you're a little pig. When he was much younger, our two sons, they were probably about 10 or 12 at the time, they taught him to come when called. And at one boy at each end of the hallway, they held out a treat, and with me directing, I'm going to take my treat bag off because he's just sort of out of control, isn't he? As a matter of fact, Carolyn, if you don't mind getting Gaston from the other room, and that way, Tony, T, you have to earn these treats, you little rascal. No, you can't get them for just being cute. So let me hand you Tony, and you can bring Gaston. There we go. All right. There we go. There's Gaston, the other guy. So if you have a cat who is at one end of a hallway, with Tony, we taught him very quickly that one boy would say his name and hold out a treat, and he would run to him and get the treat, and then the other son would hold out a treat, and Tony would turn around and run to him. And it was very quick that Tony learned how to earn food and come when called. And he still does it. And he was only like 2 or 3 at the time. Now Gaston, come here, baby. He is a somewhat different creature, a little bit less forward. Come here, son. Oh, it's all right. It's okay. Come with me. There you go. You're a big boy. So here's the thing with Gaston. He is a bit more shy. And so what we're going to do with him is I'm going to show you how to clicker train a cat. We've been talking about clicker training with dogs in the last couple of weeks. And any creature can be clicker trained because it marks what's going on in the brain at the moment. Okay? And so I have a clicker. And we're going to click and then give a treat. It's always in that order. Click, treat. And the cat, in this case, learns to associate the click with the food. And the click can then cause the guy to learn much, much faster than he otherwise would and retain the memory. And here's a little cheater on this thing. Once a pet has been well clicker trained and they understand that, by golly, I better pay attention, then sometimes when the cat's involved in something it shouldn't be, you can click the clicker and the cat will immediately abandon its focus on the other trigger, the other cat, if it's messing with another cat, for example, reorient its attention to its person, and then come to you, and then you give a command, click again, and then give a treat. So, Gaston, let me see what we can do with you here. I have some food for you. And, come back here, you little rascal. I'm going to get the clicker out of my treat bag. I suggest that when you're home, you carry a treat bag with you and a clicker all the time, just so you can be ready with your cat. So, Gaston, come. There you go. Good boy. Wait, you didn't get the treat, son. There you go.
Hi to Meg Nickel and Elizabeth Torres.
Oh, Elizabeth, you're here. And Meg Nickel came too. I'm delighted. Meg Nickel is my sister, and she loves cats too.
Alexandra
Oh, and Alexandra. Thank you. So what we're doing with Gaston is we're going to capture these behaviors, meaning that I'm going to call his name, but I'm not going to say the word come until he's actually coming toward me. And I'm going to put the food down. Come. And he gets the click immediately for doing what I've asked. Then the treat follows. And I'm making it real easy because he's right in front of me. Gaston. Sometimes you have to wait. Gaston. Come. Good boy. So he's not coming because he hears the word come. That's later. Right now we're teaching him to just make an association, a connection between hearing that command and which is a much, whoops, I'm sorry, son, which is a much more, Gaston. Gaston, here, baby. Gaston. And he hears Tony on the other side of the door. Gaston, oh, come. Now, cats are different than dogs and other species in that they are real serious predators. Gaston, come. There you go. Gets the click right before the treat. He's watching Tony on the other side of the door. Gaston. Gaston. Come. Good boy. You want him to associate the whole thing together. Here you are. You're right here. Gaston. Come. And when he gets really good at this, you can say the word come and then he'll do it. But this is called capturing. In other words, we're capturing the behavior that we want. Oh, Gaston, you can't get treats up there. You have to come back down here. Come here, baby. Gaston. Come on, your little... Oh, no. Down you go. There. That's it. All right. Gaston. Come. Good boy. Gaston. Come. Good boy.
So there's a question when you're ready.
All right. Gaston, come. There we go. So here's something about giving cats treats. Well, just about anything, if it is really still, not moving at all, they tend not to notice it. Because they're such inveterate predators, it has to be motion to get there. And that's why they'll watch mice until the mouse finally moves. Bang, that mouse has had it. So when I put a treat on the floor, very often I'll tap the floor, and I'll show you that, and then I'll answer a question. Oh, there we go. Now, Gaston, come. He's already catching on. Good boy. Let's do that once more. Gaston, come. Good boy. Okay, so the question.
From Alexandra, how do you train a cat to walk on a leash?
Well, it's actually, you can use these same methods.
Repeat the question.
Yeah. To train a cat to walk on a leash is Alexandra's question. You need to start with a harness, and they are cat harnesses. They work much better than collars. You know, dogs and cats are actually different. You know, when we were kids, we might have thought that the dogs were the boys and the cats were the girls. It's not like that. They're not little 10-pound dogs with short ears. And they function rather differently. The point about the clicker, by the way, is that pretty much any species can be trained to a clicker. But with cats, if you have a harness, they feel a lot better moving and feeling maybe a little pull from the leash now and then. But around the neck, they kind of wig out. So you need a harness. Most cats will take to them pretty easily. Start out with being pretty loose, knowing that he might get out of the harness, and so you're starting in the house. And gradually, with repeated use, the cat learns that this doesn't feel so bad, and you can start adjusting it so that the cat's not going to get out of it. And then I suggest that once the cat is trained to the harness, that you attach a lightweight leash. They make leashes for cats. You can get them 4-6 feet long, lightweight stuff, and the cat learns to drag it around the house. So you get your cat walking around the house dragging a leash, and they learn that, okay, once in a while I can feel a little friction of the leash behind me, but it's not a problem. And so they just gradually become, as we say, habituated to it. It just becomes part of their daily habit. And then, inside your house, you can pick up the leash, and if you're at the same time as this cat's been learning to wear its harness and learning to drag a leash, you're also teaching the cat to, Gaston, come. Come for treats. Oops, it stuck to my finger. Sorry, little guy. Did you find it? No, here. Gaston. The motion of my finger attracted him to the treat. So at the same time that he's getting accustomed to his and dragging a leash, at other times of day and only twice daily, and only training sessions of 3 to 4 minutes in duration. We know that from very sound research, but I can tell you from a lot of observations that they learn much faster if you don't overdo it. And boy, it's hard to stop sometimes when you see the pet really catching on and you want them to, boy, just everybody's having fun. Well, actually, you quit when they're like, oh, God, I've had it. And so then the next time you start the training, the cat's like still got that association. So 3 to 4 minutes max, put away your clicker and your treat, all those things, so that the cat sees you doing, wait a minute, Alexandra, I was still enjoying that, darn it. And so twice daily, he gets another chance to work and learn. So at the same time your cat is learning to wear the harness and drag the leash, you're also teaching come. So when you get to the point where this cat's walking around dragging this leash with no problem, and you can pick up the leash and walk with this cat a few steps, and the cat might feel a little pressure, a little pull on the harness, that's all right. And then you're wearing your treat bag, and you have your clicker. You can get these things for $1.50 like most pet supply stores. And my treat bag, I like this one because it's got this extra little pouch where I can put my clicker. Okay, so these aren't just dry cat food. These are cat food treats. These are high value. And in fact, by the way, if you wait until after your training sessions to feed your cat, then you have a more food-motivated student, right? More willing to work for the rewards. And so then your cat's dragging this leash around, and every now and then, squat down. Don't bend over, don't lean over from the hips. That can be a little intimidating. Get right down on the floor with them, so that then you can say, Alexandra, what's your cat's name? Maybe Carolyn will tell me as soon as Alexandra types it in the comment line. You say your cat's name, and you wait until she's starting to come. And as she's starting to come, you say come, and you've got that food down there. I usually put in motion like this because the cat notices the motion. And then when they come for it, as soon as they're about to reach it, click and give the treat. Okay? And sometimes I didn't tell Gaston just now to come, but he went for the treat, and so I clicked him, because I'm trying to teach him that when he hears that click, food will follow. Because right now, the clicker, well, it's just a sound, right? It's what's called an unconditioned reinforcer. But we want to condition your cat to be reinforced by simply the sound of a click, and he's made that connection a bridge between that and food just by repetition. That's why food always follows. So, Gaston, come. Good boy. Look how good you are. Gaston, come. There you go. So he's making pretty darn good progress, isn't he? You're being such a good boy. And so, I'd like to demonstrate for you with the old pro himself, Tony. Carolyn, would you trade cats for us here? If I do this at the same time, and have both cats in here while I'm trying to tell one to come when called, then they both come when called. And it's not so much that they'll fight, although cats can do that. They usually don't.
Hi to Cindy.
Oh, hello, Cindy. Thank you for coming. Well, look, there's Tony. At least these guys don't... these two cats of ours tend to be a little bit snarky with each other occasionally. In fact, the photograph that I put in the Facebook Live event when I put it on Facebook last night was Gaston, the white guy, kind of leaning in and looked like he was going to take a little nip out of Tony. Tony? Hey, Tony? Tony, come. Good boy. So what I want to be able to do with these two cats is I want to have one cat come when called and derail their attention on the other guy. Tony, come. Good boy. He says, I'll take that treat. And this little guy, Tony, by the way, and he's about 14, he can come from pretty long distances, and sometimes even when he's outside. Let's put you back over here. He says, I think I know what's about to happen. Tony, come. Good boy. And that clicker is such a consistent feature of this whole thing, and they will work for that sound after they've been conditioned to associate it with the food that follows right away. So like I was saying earlier, once they get really good at this, you can click the clicker. Did you notice that he responded? And so if I see some kind of a dust-up between these two little hooligans, sometimes I can just click, and they'll abandon each other and start coming. Tony, come. That's a good boy. And you know, he did catch on much faster than Gaston, and it's really because he just has a naturally more social personality. It's just part of who this is. And Gaston was a stray we found as a kitten, and he's been a little bit nervous about new things his whole life. He's about 4 years old now. But Tony we adopted as a kitten from another family, and they had a bunch of kids, and they had dogs and other cats, and you know, he grew up and socialized early at the appropriate times, understanding that all of those things are just part of life, and Gaston didn't really quite have that advantage. As much as many of these behaviors are genetically programmed, a lot of them are environmentally influenced as well. So all we want to do with our cats is have just a little over them. Tony, come. And teaching a cat to come is something else that will impress your friends. And so one of the big takeaways for me when I have studied behavior during my residency training and when I continue to study it in research papers is that we can apply some of these lessons to people. And yeah, cats and dogs are very different species, and those two are very different than humans, but there are some similarities. And there's this operant behavior conditioning method called differential reinforcement, and it applies to pretty much all species. And it's really very simple. If you see a behavior you don't want, you can try to punish it. People do that with their kids, they do that with their pets, and they do that with other adults. Well, you can get resentment with any of those species. If you punish frequently enough, consistently, immediately following the undesirable behavior, you can diminish the frequency of those behaviors you don't want. But, on the other hand, if you ignore the behavior and then find an opportunity for that other creature to earn something positive, it takes a little bit longer. Oh, you're going to steal from my treat bag too, aren't you? Then the other person will actually learn with repetition to work for the positive interactions. And you notice that Tony, he keeps showing up in front of me here because he believes that I might call him again. And that's desirable behavior, isn't it? Tony, come. And see, I don't wait for him to start coming. I just tell him because he already knows that one. So if you have anybody in your life who offends you, says something inappropriate or does something inappropriate, and it could be one of your pets or someone else, and you ignore it, really ignore it, and then whenever they do something that you like, give them a smile, you will find that people are much happier earning that kind of easy positive reinforcement. They're happier with that than they would be getting chided and scolded for doing something like invading your privacy. So it's the kind of thing that you can apply these cat and dog behaviors. Here, son. Tony, look, baby.
There's a question.
Okay. So anyway, you don't have to react to things you don't want. Instead, in this case, we're derailing from things that we don't want and then reinforcing for following a command. But with anybody, you can ignore the wrong behaviors and reinforce just calm behavior, just anything that's not offensive, you can reinforce it. So here's a question.
From Alexandra, do you have a constant feeder for dry food, or do you put out the food 2 times a day?
You know, if you're going to be training Alexandra, I think that's a really smart question, because if you have food out all the time, then your cat is really never hungry and never that food motivated. And you can still train with food and clickers, but it takes a lot longer. On the other hand, if you feed at specific times, then you can actually delay a meal a little bit so your cat is a little extra hungry, and then they're going to work faster. And we have research to show that food-motivated pets are going to be more faster to train. Now, having said all that, cats in particular, generally speaking, don't do as well on dry food because dry food has lots of starch in it. And this little guy, Tony T. Now, here, hold on. Here's a couple of kibbles. There. I'm distracting him with a little food on the floor so I can take off my treat bag. And in fact, I'm going to hand my treat bag to Carolyn, who can put, oh, Jesus, well, we jackpotted him. There's food on the floor now. Tony, Carolyn can call him and he'll pick up that food. Tony, there you go. There you go. Where the heck were we?
Dry food.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Carolyn. Dry food for cats makes life easier, especially for people who work full time, although most aren't doing it now. But when you go back to it and you leave it out and it doesn't get funky and nasty and it just stays dry and they can snack on it whenever they need to. The problem is that dry food, it's like a biscuit. It's a baked food and it has to stick together like a biscuit. And they do that by adding starch, which is, the way baked food that you and I would eat sticks together and doesn't fall apart on the plate. Well, the trouble with all that, of course, is that it's primarily carbohydrates. Fine with carbohydrates as long as we don't overdo it, and the same with dogs. But the digestive system in cats is a different creature. And cats will tend to have an impossible time dealing with all that starch. Their natural diet is rodents, and they eat the whole creature, but it's primarily protein, a little bit of fat, and a very small amount of carbs. So when we're feeding a dry diet to a cat, we're loading them with carbohydrates that they're not genetically designed to be able to handle. And gradually that stuff is stored as fat. And so the long-term problem for cats who are on exclusively dry diets is that they gradually get overweight and muscle wasted because as a relative proportion of what's in the food, the protein isn't that much. And these guys are hunters and they're athletes by nature and they need a high protein diet and a very low carbohydrate diet. And so with cats who are on exclusive dry diets, we see a lot more obesity and a lot more diabetes and a lot more fatty liver disease, which can kill a cat in pretty quick order sometimes. So I'm not real high on dry diets, frankly. Our two cats, Tony here and Gaston, eat exclusively canned, except when we're training, and then we use a little bit of this dry food. But they love, these two guys at least, just love the texture of dry food. I know that when Tony was a baby, when he was raised in the family where we got him from, when he was about 8 weeks, they had fed him dry food. And Gaston, he was stray, but it's pretty clear to me that he had eaten dry food when we found him, because these guys love dry food. And so it makes it a particularly good motivator for training them because they think it's wonderful. So if they get a little bit, it's not going to hurt anybody's feelings. So back to your cat, Alexandra, what I would do would be to put out canned food. We use canned kitten food in particular because it's got almost exactly the same amount of protein, fat, and very low carbs as a mouse. So it's even closer to the natural diet that this species was evolved to thrive on. It's about as close as you can get, a little closer than adult food. So get over that it says kitten on the label. It's the healthiest diet for healthy cats of all ages. They develop kidney disease, which all older cats do, heart disease or some other internal problem, bladder disease. There are prescription diets that are appropriate for those cats. So we get off the high protein stuff then. But a healthy cat of all ages otherwise should eat a high protein, low fat, low carbohydrate diet. And science diet canned kitten food is what me and Gaston get twice a day. So back to your question. If you're going to train your cat in the morning, then don't put the food out yet. And we just put the can of canned cat food in a big plastic dog bowl, actually. And they go in there and they eat what they want. And when they walk away, I pick it up, put a plastic can lid on it, stick it in the fridge, and then later I offer them food again. Ideally, cats are fed 4 or 5 small meals a day because that's what they eat in nature. We have these pets and they live with us and belong with us. There's no question about that. And they're our wonderful friends. But they have some basic needs that are particular to their species. And it's our obligation to try to make that part of their life as much as possible to give them security and to reduce stress. So with feeding, give the right nutrients and 4 or 5 meals a day. So back to your question, I would not feed until after the morning training and the evening training. I would keep the food away for several hours, then train, then put the food back out again. So you've got a food-motivated cat. So I hope that's helpful. I'm going to put on my Facebook page that next week I'm going to do a webinar instead of a Facebook Live. And this is for people with dogs whose dogs have separation anxiety, which is always obvious. Some of these dogs do not wreck the house. They do not house soil when their person is gone. Some of them simply pace and cry and are just freaked out and miserable. And there are some wonderful ways nowadays of dealing with that, including an excellent new electromagnetic field device that adjusts the neurochemistry in the fear center of the brain. We'll talk about that next week. And so I invite anybody with a dog to tune in, even if you're pretty sure your dog doesn't have separation problems. Because if you watch your surveillance video or prop your smartphone up against a couple of books and take a look at a video of your dog when you've been gone, if that little guy is pacing or panting or just acting restless, you may have a dog who has that problem, not super severe, but enough to be a problem.
Hi,
And,
Jane.
oh, and Jane's here too. Wonderful. So I would, Jane from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so if you have a dog, I would suggest you tune in next week. It's going to be on Tuesday. And I will put on my Facebook page a link to register for it. It's free. And even if your dog for sure doesn't have separation anxiety, you might learn something about dog behavior, and you can pass it on to your friends. You can tag them with it too. Because, by the way, this special device, I can qualify you for a discount. You simply put my name in the coupon code when you order it if you go that way. So tuning in might save you a few bucks. So thank you for being here with cats. We haven't done cats in a few weeks, but I just love my kitties, and so many cats have behavior issues that people tend to live with, and especially when you have more than one cat in a household, they can get on each other's nerves. And as their leader, you can intervene without water sprays and swats and yelling and startling your cats and maybe damaging your bond with them by simply teaching them, hey, come here, work for that click and a treat, and they abandon that other behavior, at least at the moment. So I'm glad you came, and if there are questions, again, you can sure put them on my Facebook page. And I invite you to subscribe to my website, which drjeffnichol.com, drjeffnichol. And when you do, at the bottom of the homepage, you can subscribe. And that, of course, is free too. And when you subscribe, I will send you at no charge my pet first aid and CPR guide. And every Tuesday morning in your email inbox, you will get my Facebook Live from the previous week and my weekly blog, usually a question answer. It's published in the Albuquerque Journal. And I'll send that to you. I split it between cats and dogs, and half between behavioral and half other physical problems. So you can learn some things. And I know you're committed to your pets because you this if you weren't. So thank you again. I'm glad you shared a little time with me. And I'll see you next week on my webinar for separation anxiety for pet parents. Thank you. Say goodbye, Tony T.